Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Hi there, good afternoon. This is your stocks on CNBC TV18. I'm Manglam Malu. With me is Ekta Batra. We're just hours away from the May series expiry. 50 points on the Nifty, a century and a half plus on the Sensex, double century on the Nifty Bank. The mid-caps, they are underperforming. But the word that we learned today, Ekta, it's a Sanskrit word called Kimbo, means what's up. Ekta, Kimbo.
Well, not much, except for the fact that it's probably going to turn out to be an expiry with the Nifty above 10,600. So that's definitely a positive which is coming in. And separately, it is the mid-caps which are underperforming at this point in time. So down around half odd %. Lot of stocks under pressure. Just take your pick in terms of the likes of the Atlantas of the world, down 20%. Dilip Bilcon, which has lost another 12 odd % today. 1% Beverages, which is down around 10 odd %. So you have these select stocks which continue to see pressure. But nonetheless, we'll be talking about that and a lot more. But first, the top stories this afternoon. Relief rally on the last read ahead of the futures and options expiry for the month of May. Infosys, Kotak Bank and HDFC prop up the Nifty today. Banks outperform, but the mid-caps take a beating on continued risk aversion.
Crude prices surge again, Brent near 77.5 levels after reports that the OPEC will stick to the production cut agreement. Bond yields too jump and the rupee falls.
Second day of gains for HDFC Bank after a roaring rise in the ADR overnight. The street expects aggressive buying in the stock once SEBI discontinues the FII trading window for equities from the 1st of July.
All eyes on the fourth quarter GDP numbers due later today. A good Rabi crop, uptick in manufacturing and a low base to aid growth. The CNBC TV18 poll estimates improvement of 200 basis points to 7.4% versus 7.2% in the previous quarter.
And in the four biggest buy polls, BJP is facing an uphill battle to avoid another UP buy poll setback. BJP is ahead in Palghar, Shiv Sena and BVA fight for second place. And the voter ID scam fails to dent the Congress chances. The Congress is set for a thumping win in RR Nagar. Okay, so those were all of the top stories that we're tracking this afternoon. But on the show today, we have Vijay Chopra joining in on the fundamentals, Rajat Bose joining in on the technicals. Afternoon, gentlemen. Well, let's get going in terms of the first caller that we have, Mr. Rajkumar, calls us from Odisha, and he has a query with investments in Tata Motors. Mr. Rajkumar?
Hi, yes.
Hi, your question is on Tata Motors?
Hi, yes.
Go ahead.
I'm having 960 shares of Tata Motors at the rate of 365.
Okay.
I'm a long-term investor. I want to know the prospectus on 3 years basis.
Okay, so you're okay with holding it for another 3 years?
Yes. I also want to know when to add more.
Okay.
At what price?
And whether,
Please.
in fact, you should add more.
Yes.
All right. Vijay, what would you recommend to Mr. Rajkumar in terms of his query? Tata Motors, he's okay to hold it for another 3 years. He's sitting on a steep loss at this point. He's okay to average at levels also.
Well, I think that he should wait for a correction, and we can see the stock coming down to 260, 270 odd levels, and that would be a great level to add more stocks at if somebody holds for a longer period. Now, one silver lining I see in Tata Motors is that they are now focusing on the Indian markets, which the focus was completely missing a few years back, and with the launch of new models. I think that the sales numbers have started looking good in India. And I think if somebody looks with a 3 to 5 year perspective, Tata Motors can be a force to reckon with, amongst the Marutis and Hyundais of the world, because they had almost completely lost their domestic market, but now they are regaining share. So one, the dependence upon JLR has gone down considerably, or would go down considerably over a period of time, which is good for the company. And at these levels, I think that, the valuations are very, very good and attractive. And if somebody wants to average 260, 70 would be a great level to get into the stock. So long-term investment, no worries at all. Get into the stock at around 260.
All right. So it is a good level to buy Tata Motors at these levels. Rajat, I was just looking at a long-term chart of Tata Motors. Over the last 5 years, the stock thrice has recovered from this zone of 275 to 280, 290 perhaps. Do you think technically this is a good level for our caller, to Mr. Rajkumar, to go ahead and buy more? Because that was one of his questions as well.
Yeah, I would tend to think so. In fact, on your sister channel day before yesterday, I also said the same thing, that this is the level from where Tata Motors has recovered at least twice in the past, and at this time certain technical setups suggest that Tata Motors downside correction, which began much earlier, and it is on the last leg, and so this is a good buying opportunity. I would concur with Vijay that put a stop loss below 250, average on the downside any level you get, be it 270, be it 260, whatever be that, and buy this counter, buy this stock, so that you hold it for the long term and reap the benefits. At least 550 to 600 could again be reached over the next 3 years.
Okay, all right. So that's the view coming in on Tata Motors. But we have another caller. We have Raj Agarwal, who calls us from Bangalore with a question. He has investments in Lupin. Hi, Raj.
Hi.
Hi, tell us.
So my question is that I hold 1,700 shares of Lupin at an average cost of around 1,100 rupees. So the question is, does it make sense to add a few more now that I'm sitting on losses, and to bring down my average cost price? Or should I just hold these till it recovers?
How long are you okay with holding it for?
I'm okay to hold it for another 1 to 2 years.
Okay, 1 to 2 years, and you're...
Or more if it makes sense.
Or even longer. So you're pretty much a long-term shareholder. All right, Vijay, well, let's start with you on this one also, because Raj is a long-term shareholder. His buy price is 1,100 rupees. Currently, the stock is at 770. He's okay to add on at these levels also. What would you recommend? He can hold it even beyond 2 years. What would you recommend?
Well, I think that the entire pharma pack is in the process of bottoming out. And with the, dollar strengthening and the rupee weakening, all the exporters, generally pharma and IT, are going to be benefited. Now, these 2-3 years have been extremely harrowing as far as the US FDA goes, and, they have come down with a very strong hand on all the pharma players. And I think that now they've set their house in order. Most of the plants are getting US FDA approvals. And one thing for sure, that, you leave the Indian markets, their major dependence is on the European and the American markets, because that's where the moolah comes from. So I think that, if he wants to average 740, 750 could be a good range where he can average. And I think that this stock can go up to 900, 950 comfortably if somebody holds with, 1 to 2 years perspective. And even 1,000 and 1,100 are not ruled out. But yes, he has to wait. And as we saw in Sun Pharma, we saw a spurt of 80, 90 rupees suddenly. And we might see these pharma counters coming back very strongly, bouncing back strongly within a very less time. So in the case of a correction in the market, 740, 750 could be a good range to average.
All right. Rajat, your view on Lupin, the person's losing a fair amount of money from 1,100 to about 770, where the stock is right now, in excess of 5 lakh rupees, I reckon. Do you think 1,100 is visible on the charts anytime in the next 1-2 years?
Well, in the next one or 2 years, whether it will reach 1,100, that is a bit doubtful scenario. But then I would say that going by the cycles and going by the kind of consolidation that Lupin is going through, if he buys here and put a stop loss below 700 on closing price basis, I don't think his stop loss will be hit. And while there is a possibility that over the next 3 to 4 years, 1,100 could well be scaled up, because Lupin is in the process of bottoming out. I completely agree with Vijay that most of the Indian pharma companies, leave aside Biocon, which of course is in its own trajectory and is in a bull run. Other companies are almost showing signs of bottoming out, and Lupin is one of them.
All right, unequivocal, both fundamental on technical views as far as Lupin's bottoming out is concerned. And there was some news as well, Ekta. They launched a new drug.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, it's quite an important drug in the women's healthcare space that Lupin has launched. It's called Solosec. So this particular drug is actually important because the current treatment in the market is quite elongated, and there are issues with regards to lifestyle. For example, you can't consume alcohol, etc. So this particular drug, Solosec, allows people who are consuming the drug to only take it once. It's only required to be taken once, and the drug stays in your body for 4 days. And separately, you can, carry on with your lifestyle, such as alcohol consumption, etc. So this is the only product in the market which sort of solves the issue in the way that it does. And if in case it does pick up, initially, according to analysts, it can make around $100 million in terms of sales. But if it starts picking up and it starts getting recommended or, prescribed by doctors as an alternative or the go-to treatment, then obviously it can be a much bigger opportunity for Lupin. And remember, it's in the branded space. It's not a generic drug. It's a branded drug that they're selling in the US. Well, so for the Bank Nifty, it's up and outperforming at this point. So good going for the Bank Nifty, up around 0.7%. And courtesy is obviously what's happening with the HDFC Bank. So maybe that stock should come up for you. It's up around close to 3% Remember, strong weightage in terms of the Bank Nifty for HDFC Bank. And maybe the Bank Nifty constituent should come up for you as well. So we'll get a fair idea in terms of what HDFC Bank is doing as compared to the rest of the indices within the Nifty Bank. ICICI Bank still sulking. In fact, that stock is down around 1% right now. It's lost 5% week to date, and year to date that stock has lost around 10% in terms of market cap. So just watch out for ICICI Bank as well. But I think we have another query now. We have a query coming in on ONGC. Mr. Mahendra Gupta is calling us from Jaipur with a question. He has investments in that stock. Mr. Gupta, hi.
Hi. I'm Mahendra Gupta.
Hi, sir. Tell us.
I'm calling from Jaipur. मेरा क्वेश्चन है, ONGC मेरे पास है 1000 शेयर 188 रुपए 50 पैसे का, क्या करना चाहिए मेरे को?
ओके, आप कितनी देर के लिए होल्ड कर सकते हो आपके पोर्टफोलियो में?
हाँ, नो प्रॉब्लम एट ऑल, मैं इसको आराम से रख सकता हूँ।
1 साल 2 साल?
हाँ, नो प्रॉब्लम।
Okay, all right. Vijay, let's come to you on this one as well, since we're getting all long-term shareholders in terms of questions. What would you recommend on ONGC, say a year, 2 years down the line? Our caller is okay with holding. He's also sitting on losses right now.
Yeah, so looking at the longer term picture, ONGC, the merger is already in process with HPCL, and, barring the news flow which actually slammed the stock down, the stock has recouped back very sharply. It is trading around 180 odd levels today. So I think that, in the short term, 200, 210 is quite a possibility. But I would recommend, if somebody wants to get into, oil and gas shares, it's better to be, in the likes of IOC, which can give a better, return on investment over a period of time. So he can book profits around 200, 210, and, maybe shift to an IOC or a BPCL, which gives a better promise of, return on investments. So ONGC as of now hold, but yes, exit around 200, 210.
All right, exit around 200, 210 is the fundamental view coming in. But Rajat, ONGC, speaking purely on the charts, what's your view? Do you think there could be a massive upside from here as against the other oil marketing companies?
I mean, if there is one stock that is not that doesn't qualify for me as an equity investment among the large cap stocks, this is one. Way back in 1995, when this stock was listed, the opening price was around 44 rupees, and today it is 177. If you do a CAGR, it would be below 6%. Below 6%. This is a wealth destroyer, and this is actually a fiefdom for the government. That the minority equity shareholders are treated like the windfall tax or something. So if he is actually investing for the long term, go for Vijay's suggestion or any of the pharma stocks that we just discussed, or any other stock, but not
Okay, Rajat,
ONGC.
just hold that thought. We need to cut across to our colleague Priya Sheth in conversation with Anand Mahindra.
Rolling? Yeah, rolling. Thank you, Mr. Mahindra, for joining us today. First, EV has been very close to your heart. And first of all, talk to us about the MOU that you've signed with the Maharashtra government at this point.
Well, there were two MOUs that Mahindra signed. They were signed by Dr. Pawan Goenka and the government officials here. And the first one was to launch our project in the Chakan plant, where we are going to be making EVs and components of electric vehicles, such as motors and controllers. And we will in fact be exporting some of those elements to our other plants in the country, which will be making these electric vehicles and other electric equipment. So there is a package of incentives that the Maharashtra government has given us, which we acknowledged in the MOU today. And we are making an investment of 500 crores in this in Chakan for electric vehicle related production. The second MOU was about promising really to sell up from 500 to 1,000 electric vehicles in Maharashtra this year in order to help the government's interest in penetrating the vehicle market with electric mobility. One of the things we're going to do right now is going to the Gateway of India. We're going to flag off cars that we are giving to Zoomcar. We are investors in Zoomcar, but this is the kickoff of shared mobility here of electric shared mobility in Mumbai. And hopefully you will rent a Zoomcar with a Mahindra vehicle very soon too.
So what are the kind of orders that have come in from the Maharashtra government already? Is there some sort of ballpark?
The Chief Minister made clear his intention to get them today.
Individual stocks doing fairly well. Britannia has hit the high point of the day. In fact, it's hit a record high. The market cap has crossed 71,000 crores. Interesting, because in 1892 the company was started with an initial capital of just 295 rupees. So that's 18.5% CAGR over 126 years. So that is Britannia for you. But let's move on to our next query. We have Mr. Rajiv writing to us from Mumbai, holds 95 shares of Blue Dart at 400 rupees for the last 10 years. Long-term investor, well, very long-term investor, 400 rupees. The stock is currently close to 3,400, so making almost 10x. Wants to know whether to hold or sell. Well, Vijay, Blue Dart, the person's holding for the last 10 years. He's made 10x on 8, almost 3.5. I mean, he's made close to around 8-9 times on Blue Dart. The stock is 50% off its life high. Would you reckon that there is more to come on this one?
Well, I think that it's a good, stable company in logistics, and we have seen correction happening in logistics sector all across. So if somebody wants to hold on to such a company, which is a zero debt company and it's a market leader in its in its segment, I would say that he should hold on to the stock. There's a great possibility that the stock can go up to 5,000 again when the markets turn the tide. So we have seen a correction, yes, but I would say that no worries. If at all you do not need money, long-term investors should not panic at all. And the stock is surely going to see 5,000, 6,000 levels again. And this is the level where it actually belongs to. You've seen what happened to Britannia, just you were mentioning. So I think that it is a kind of a stock which can be held on to with a longer-term perspective. No harm at all.
Okay, all right, Vijay as well as Rajat, thanks very much for joining in and taking us through all of those queries, and that's all the time that we have on the show. But do remember, tomorrow we have a lady special show on Your Stocks where we will be answering all your queries from our female callers. Do remember to keep sending us all of your questions by posting it on CNBCTV18.com. Stay tuned. Closing bell will take you through the last hour of trade for the May expiry.